And just like for the last class, if you do want to go out here right now to the P drive, CIS folder, the 152, 167, Ajax, that's what I'm going to go over first. We'll do that. We'll go over the syllabus. And believe it or not, I hope to get through as much of the first 3 chapters today as possible. Okay? Whatever we don't finish, we'll pick it up there next time. My goal is to average, at least for the first week or two, I'd like to get through the first part of the book, which is the first 6 chapters, as soon as possible. And then you'll get your first assignment. Your first assignment will be to create your own website. All right, and we'll talk about that, but I haven't written it up yet, so I can't tell you any more than that. All right, so like I just asked you to do, I'll do the same thing, and I'll come out here right now, so here's the stuff. As you can see, I've got some articles in here that I found and some series on Angular JS. We probably won't even get to that part of the book. I don't know. Here's some jQuery and other stuff. Just JavaScript articles. Just jQuery articles. Here's some PDFs. I cannot find a PDF for this book. All right, I did find one for your other class. I can't find one for this book. I've tried, but I can't find it. All right. But these are some other books that are available that you might want to take a look at or not. This is the source code for your book. All right, so this is all of the source code that is in the book. I would suggest that when we go over stuff as a class, that when possible, you try to key it in, because I don't think you learn a whole heck of a lot by just getting the finished product and just copying it over onto your own machine. But not everybody agrees with that, so grab all this junk that's here and just throw it up in there. All right, so as far as the syllabus goes, my information, okay, and again, this is kind of a different semester for me because I don't have an 8 o'clock class Monday through Thursday. That's the first time, both those days I think since I've been here that I didn't have a class. So I'm usually here by no later than 6:30, but a lot of times by 6 a.m. All right, and I'm going to be in here, but usually by no later than 7. Sometimes I go up in the office, but not often. All right. Again, the easiest way to reach me is by email, not by phone, because I don't check my phone very often. We meet Monday and Wednesday, 3 to 4:50 in here. This stuff was taken right out of Banner, so that was the description for the book. All right. I'm taking for granted that everybody who's in here has had the 152, 119 class, the intro to whatever it is, learning to program with JavaScript. Now, if you haven't, you still can stay in the class. It's not that big a thing, but I'm the first 6 chapters are kind of review from the last course, for lack of better wordage. All right. This is the book, again, if you have not seen it. I know there were ample copies. I'm doing something, again, I've never done before. This book is for your class. I'm also using it for one of the second-year classes. All right? Those people last semester had, I heard some of you talking about an instructor who's not here any longer and talking about your feelings about him. Well, they had that same instructor for jQuery. And what I heard from the majority of the people who took that class was we didn't learn a frigging thing. So that's one of the reasons I decided to go with this book, so you hopefully can learn a frigging thing. All right? I don't know how many assignments there'll be, so, And again, you're going to see this on the last page of the syllabus. Most of you were in my class this morning, so you already heard this. This school, enrollments are going down. Enrollments always go down, especially in technical colleges, when the job market is good. When the job market is bad, people typically go to school. All right, and since right now the job market is at least pretty good, all right, they thought that enrollment would be down about, I think they were guessing 3 to 5% from last semester, or from spring last year to fall. Well, it was more like 12% from what I heard, and they had not accounted for that. So these deficits they've had, which they thought were going to be around $250,000 are closer to $1 million. All right. And they've got contingency funds and stuff, but when you keep chomping away at your contingency fund, sooner or later there's no contingency fund left. All right. And one of the things that we had been told was that last year there were a number of students, I'm not saying anybody in here, but there were a number of students school-wide who would come twice during the semester, and that would be to pick up both their financial aid checks. So what we are told right now is if you miss more than 2 straight classes, I'm supposed to basically send a notice out to student services, and they're going to contact you asking you if you are still in the class. And if you say, well, I don't know, then they're going to drop you. I'm not. They're going to. All right? And like I said, it's all basically it's a money thing. You may have seen the sign too on each one of the pods here. They are, I guess they can do that from upstairs. They're going to power down the computers after 5 o'clock every night. All right, they're trying to do what they can to save some money. I've already mentioned to a couple people, including my boss, you walk around this place on a Thursday afternoon, Luke, you know it, and really a lot of times too on Monday and Wednesday, there'll be nobody down this whole hallway, but every light's on. In every classroom, the lights are on, all the computers are on. Half the people leave on the overheads, and it's like, geez, let's see if we can waste some more money, because it's not like we're losing money. All right. Again, this thing, you probably heard that this morning. The idea is if you go through any program at Blackhawk, these are life skills you should get, in the different programs. The one we concentrate on in here, again, is using appropriate technology. All right. You can see for the competencies, I kept them simple. All right. So you should have a working knowledge of the first 4 things that are shown there: HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and jQuery. All right. And ideally, we'll at least have an introduction to Angular JS. I know for the advanced class, they will go into chapters 20 through 29. So all those lectures will be out there on the system. And speaking of that, just so you know this, if you don't, if you go out here to videos already, I've already created videos for the first 11 chapters of the book. So those are all out there already. All right. Now, are they that great? They're out there. I'm not going to say they're great or they're not great. All right. Probably more closer to not great than great, but they're out there. All right.
What's the difference in your videos between the Angular and the jQuery?
Oh, good question. The question was, what are the differences between, if you look in here, this, if you've never used Blackboard before, all right, that'll teach you how. If you've never worked with a virtual desktop, this I created, this is kind of what we're doing right now, like an intro, all right. And what this is, some of these are things I did last semester. See, notice from fall. So that's what I did for your classes, all right. But some of them are just presentations that I'd done earlier, and I put them out there. Yes?
You said they're turning the power off from upstairs down
yes.
here at 5 o'clock. What if you're working on something?
No. What they're going to do, what I've heard they're going to do, is they're going to walk around here, and if they see people in here, they know the numbers on the machines. They from upstairs, they can tell if you're on. That's why, like when you had your problems this morning, he remoted in as you. All right, and they can do stuff like that. They've done it for me too. When I've got problems with the machine, they just go in as me. All right. No, they're not gonna. They're not gonna. If you're in the middle of working on something, it's just not gonna disappear. All right, not to my knowledge, at least. All right. All right. Again, all the material is both on the P drive and under Blackboard. We'll go back to Blackboard in just a second. If you do have some kind of a disability, you can let me know. We don't have tests. I don't give tests. So, hopefully that won't be any kind of issue. Normally that's mainly an issue when you have tests. So, as I mentioned this morning, we're supposed to have a cell phone policy on our syllabus, so I put that in there. I don't care if your phone rings. If it rings every day, I might say something to you. All right, like mute it or something like that, but usually it's not a problem. As I already mentioned, I'd prefer that you use email as your mode of communication. It makes it easier for me. I try to turn things around as fast as I possibly can. And again, this goes back to what I had told you before with the class attendance. All right, this is an edict that came down, not from me, but in the last 2 weeks they came down and said, You will have a cell phone policy in your syllabus, and you will put in something about attendance in your syllabus. So I've rewritten this. This is the third time I've rewritten this thing. All right, even though it says on here version 1, I just didn't take the time to update the version, but it's been changed a couple times. Any questions on any of that stuff? All right, I already showed you what's on the P drive, and basically what's over here on Blackboard mimics what's on the P drive. So you've got over here, you've got the syllabus in Word and PDF format, the course evaluation. The videos will all be here. And if you've never heard any of my videos before, don't worry, you don't see my face. All right, it's my voice and the computer. All right, that's all that it is. All right, I try to make sure too, all the stuff from this morning for the Java class, if you were in that, that's all out there already. All right, and the stuff from today, I'm gonna when the last person's out of here, I'm gonna be gone too. All right, pretty close to 10-2, but I can take that stuff and I can get to it from home. So I can. The only problem is my machine at home is it's the one the school gives me, but I got so much junk on it, it takes twice as long to produce stuff on there. All right, but that's not a big problem. All right, I already showed you the book source. There are no PowerPoints, I don't believe. If there aren't any, I always just put a mess. Yeah, none available. Okay. Anything that we do in class will be under the in class thing. Your homework will be in here. And I didn't mention this last time, the other class, but I'll say it again. I'll say it now. And that is, last semester I took my 5th sick day. I've been here, I'm going into my 24th year. All right, 5 sick days. So I'm not sick often. But if I am, I put something out here. I posted it here as an announcement, and I make sure it's emailed to all of you, because I know at least some of you are coming from quite a distance. All right, and I'll let you know that as soon as I possibly know. Also, just so you're aware of it, there is actually a discussion board out here. Not really much on it. I just set it up. All right, and well, I guess that's not much on it, but that's for you. I will look at it, but very infrequently. What I found in the past is, on average, there'll be 1 or 2 things that'll be out there the whole semester. All right. Any questions on any of that stuff? All right. The format that I have to use for your book is this. Up until this semester, I used a product that was called CourseSmart, and it worked pretty nice. CourseSmart got bought out by a company named VitalSource, and they talked about how much better their product is. It isn't. All right. The biggest reason that I say that is when I was in CourseSmart, I could actually go and I could print this stuff out. So if I wanted to print out a page, I can't do that anymore. I've got to take it and copy it all to the clipboard. And when I copy it to the clipboard, it basically removes almost every line break. So I've got to put the line breaks back in manually and then print it out. All right. So if you've got the book, let's start. Now, if you took the Java script class with me last semester, we already went through chapter 1 of the book. All right, we did that at the end of the semester. So they're going to be bored for a while, but that's tough luck. All right, because I'm going to go through it again anyway. All right, so we will at least get through chapter 1 today, and we'll at least get through chapter 2 today. I will tell you what I did. I went out, let's see. I thought I put it in both of them. Maybe I didn't. There it is. Chapter 2 is all on debugging. And I don't know if you guys did a lot of debugging. I didn't do a lot of debugging with the students last year. But Chapter 2, the book assumes that you're going to use Eclipse to go and enter your code. I'm not going to. All right? But you can if you want to. There's not a problem. Eclipse has a plugin, basically an HTML editor plugin. I haven't done a thing with it. They also expect in here that what you're using for your tool basically is Node.js. I'm not using that either. So you're like, well, why? Well, I'm not using Node.js because we already have a product that we can use on the virtual desktop called XAMPP, which at least is somewhat GUI. Whereas Node.js is all from the command line. And that's why I didn't want to do that. If you want to go and do the stuff that's in there, it's not a problem. All right, I'm not going to be able to help you with it with probably much of anything, but if you want to learn it yourselves, you can. All right. If you look in here, and you'll notice if you look at what I've got right here, this is developer.chrome.com rather. That's Chrome's website. So they've got stuff in there. They've got some videos, some how-to, where they go through their debugger, and they've got an overview of the debugger. I found this, and I just used that one because it's fairly current. There's a lot of articles that are out there that when you open them up, they say, this article is outdated. Please don't use it. All right. Usually that's for a reason. All right. But I didn't put any of those out there. All right. Two more things I want to mention because I'll forget otherwise. One of them is this one. This is a thing from Code School. And literally and I haven't started it and gone through it or anything, but it appears at least as though that is a free course. So if you really want to learn Chrome Developer Tools, it looks like it's got about 7 levels in it, but I believe it's all free. All right, as far as I know. And the other thing I want to tell you is especially if last semester you think, I didn't get a lot out of JavaScript, or we're going into jQuery now and I'm really confused, or whatever, I'd strongly recommend, and again, I can't make you do anything, and even if I could, I wouldn't anyway. But what you might want to do is go out to here. It's www.codeacademy.com, and like any other one, you don't have to even put the www. It's just codeacademy.com. If you come out there, you get to right here, or pretty close to right here. If you sign up for an account, they have classes on how to build a website. They have classes on JavaScript. They've got classes on jQuery. They're all fairly interactive. All right, I'm going through the jQuery one right now. I think it's really good. All right, I'm about 70% of the way through it. I haven't gone through the other ones, but I'd like to go through all of them. All I'm telling you is if you go through that, it's free. All right, I've never paid a penny to them, but you do have to sign up. And I will tell you, I think that I've been a member for 3 years. I probably have gotten 3 emails. Some of these places, they deluge you with emails. That's not one of them. All right, so I thought it would, like I said, it was pretty good. The question is this better than W3 Schools? The nice thing about W3 Schools is they've got a lot of examples out there, and they encourage you to use their examples. All right. The disadvantage of W3 Schools is most of the examples are stupid. They're probably not things you would really use. In here, in the jQuery one, they've got a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say they're the best examples in the world, but they're applicable examples that I think you'd use. So yeah, I think it's better. You may or may not agree. Yeah, I think Code Academy is better. And there's other places. I mean, there's other things that you can go to too. I will tell you that when we get to that point, and it won't be very long, all right, if you just do, you don't have to do this right now, but for jQuery, again, we'll go out to jQuery.com, all right, and there's a ton of stuff that you can get from right here. The download of jQuery is right here. Their API documentation for all, these are all the different methods and stuff that you can call in here, all right? And not only is there jQuery, it's api.jQuery.com, but there's also, and I went over this with those of you who had me last semester, there's jQueryUI.com, where they've got about 29 different tool examples in here. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's good stuff for free, all right? So, like I said, I haven't played real much with this product, this Vital Source, but what I've played with, I really am not nuts about. But I think it's at least good enough that everybody can see it. So if you do forget your book or you don't have the book yet or whatever, you should be able to follow along. All right. I will tell you that they looked like there were plenty of books in the bookstore. When I looked in there this morning, there were about a dozen left. All right, this is another one too. As always, you can get it online. So, all right. So, chapter 1, as you notice here, it's kind of one of those chapters in a book where they try to show you a lot of different stuff, and it's kind of a prelude to what is coming in the rest of the book. And what they're trying to really, get you going on is this. You know, for years there are a lot of companies that what they did was they had the old, I guess I can show you it from right here. You've seen these before. You know, these, the trifold, that was their website. Literally, they took their trifold thing that they had and they made it into a couple web pages. It never changed. All right, it was just static. It was always the same. You could go out there now or a year from now and it didn't look any different. People don't want that. All right, that might be fine if you go out to a site, but if you go out to most people, if you go out to a site for 2, 3, 4 times and it always looks the same, there's no reason to go out there anymore. All right, you want dynamicity, and that's, you know, again, one of the things that JavaScript gives you. And one thing to realize when we get to that point is jQuery, which is what a lot of this class is going to be about, I mean a lot of it, all right, is a JavaScript library. Because people always talk about, oh, are you using JavaScript or are you using jQuery? No, jQuery is JavaScript. All right, but it's a library. And just so you see this, when you download it, and we're not going to do that, so don't even worry about it, but when you download it, you can download it either in minified version or non-minified version. What's the difference? I think I'll have to open. I don't. Yeah, I thought you'd do that. Fine. There we go. That's the minified version. You go, that's not very big. Yes, it is. Because when you minify something, you take out all the extraneous white space and almost all of the comments that are in it. So you can see what that looks like. All right? And if you know, I don't know what the size is. It looks like it's, what, 84K. If you look at the non-minified version, it's more the way you would expect a file to look. All right? So when you take a look at that, that's, oh yeah, I can read that. Yeah, I understand that. But the idea, though, is 253K versus 84K. So in other words, the minified version is about 1/3 the size of the non-minified version. So if you're going to be loading that onto a website, all right, it's basically going to, of course, load a lot faster. All right, and we'll get into talking about all that stuff later, but just so you're aware of that. All right. So as it says, the lesson's going to quickly take you through the world of jQuery and JavaScript development. You know, you're going to go through this chapter and you're going to go, you know, basically I learned squat about jQuery and very little about JavaScript in this chapter. Yeah, that's true. But again, it's a prelude to what's going to come later. They also talk in here about what they call the web server browser paradigm. And they look at different components, okay? Again, it's not my idea in here to come in here and read to you. They talk about what the World Wide Web is about. I'm going to leave that in blue for a second, but I'm going from the idea that what's there in blue, you all know that already. All right? That you have at least some kind of an idea what happens when I typed in that URL up here and hit enter. The fact that it had to go out and basically find a web server someplace. So I was making an HTTP request, and someplace it was being answered by a server that was giving me back an HTTP response. That response was basically massaged and done whatever, and it was brought back to me as HTML so that I could read it. All right, if you get that, that's really what they're talking about in here. And they break it down into the individual components, and they talk about the web server. All right, we are very fortunate in here to not only have John, and if you don't know John, probably you all do, but that's John over there. And but John has done a great job of setting up a lot of hardware-ish type of stuff in here. All right, we actually have a server that it's not in here, but it's one that we can link to, a full-fledged regular web server. So if you wanted to create a site and actually stand it up so other people could look at it, all right, from outside of here, you're able to do that. We're not going to talk about how to do that today, but we will before the semester ends. All right, but what we're going to be using basically in here is, as we did this morning, we're going to be back into the virtual desktop, and we're going to be using this product here that's called XAMPP. Now, I don't know how Denny is teaching the database class, but when I teach the database class, you also use XAMPP. All right, I don't know if he's going to use it or not. That's his call. All right, and in the book and I picked out the books, so if you hate your books, blame me. But in the book that you're using for the database class, you use MySQL Workbench. It's a fine enough product. I think he's probably going to use that. But if I go over here and I start up Apache, so there's my server. And I go over here, now I'm running Apache and I'm running MySQL. If I click right here where it says the second admin one, that's another product that you can use for databases that's called PHPMyAdmin. That's the product I use. I find that easier to use than MySQL Workbench. You may or may not agree. All right? But just so you know, once we start up Apache, now what we're doing is we are using this machine as both a client and a server. That's the good news. The bad news is that you can't bang on it from outside of this machine. So if I create something on it, it's only going to be available on this machine. All right. All right. So they talk about the web server being the most critical component and the next being the browser, and they talk about that. All right. I don't know this semester, last semester, when you've ever heard this term before or if you've ever heard that term before. But the DOM is the Document Object Model. And every time you go in and you create a web page that looks basically something like this, it doesn't have the plus signs, but you get the idea. What ends up happening in the background is a thing for this gets built. If you're getting nothing else out of today's lecture, what you're going to have to start doing is anything that you create on a web page that you might want to have the ability to manipulate. And that means if you want to add JavaScript to it, if you want to add jQuery to it, if you want to add CSS to it, whatever it is. All right, you're going to have to probably give it, more often than not, give it an ID or give it a class. All right? And I'm going to suggest that just so you start doing it, when you start giving things IDs, also, when you're writing your HTML, also give it a name. And almost always, your ID and your name will be identical. So why would I have you do that? Because you use the ID on the client side, you use the name on the server side. So you might as well get used to right away putting both of them in. Then there's not a lot of relearning that you have to do because this class, like this whole first year, is client side. Most of the stuff next year is server side. All right? All right. When you work with products like JavaScript, it's another one of those languages that are event-driven. So basically look at it this way, that the program is sitting there waiting for you to do something. When you do something, take your mouse and move it into someplace or move it out of someplace or hover it over something or you click a button, then an event is happening. All right? If you haven't put any code in there, then nothing will happen as far as answering or responding to that event. But if you put code in there, then it'll respond to the event accordingly. Now, one good thing is that over time, most browser manufacturers are coming together on standards and some other things. All right? That's the good news. The bad news is they're not there yet. And the reason that a lot of this stuff happened, if you've never heard the story, and I'll keep it real short, is you had browser wars back when there was Netscape and there was Internet Explorer, and they were basically it. Well, IE, I know this is hard to imagine for Microsoft, but they thought they were better than anybody and everybody else. So they would sit there and they would create things, and then they would basically send them over to the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, and they'd say, hey, we've done this, if you want to make it a standard, all right, type of thing. Well, after a while, basically, it from what I can tell, the W3C kind of gave them the middle finger and said, we're going to do things the way we want to do them. And for a long time, all the other browser manufacturers other than IE followed the W3C, and IE did not. Well, IE is learning to play nice now. All right, so the idea is, if you've heard all the new stuff, what is it, Edge? It's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be, why? Because it's more compatible with other browsers. That's one of the biggest things that it has that it hasn't had a lot of in the past. All right. All right, I take it again. You all know what a URL is. that I don't have to mention what that is. That if you even look at the URL that's up here, we'll just leave it the part that's blue there. You understand what all that stuff means. I'm going to assume you understand the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. You say, well, I don't. Then read the chapter. All right? Now, most of the stuff that's done today is done, most of the HTML that's written is written using HTML5. There are still not millions, but there are billions of lines out there that were written before HTML5. And unless somebody would force companies to change it, they're not going to change it. All right. Basically, most companies go where they change something when they're forced to. So they show something here. This is the first web page that they show in the book here, and it's on the bottom of page 12. But again, my thought is that you can look at this, and this makes sense to you. And you can look at that and realize that after you do that, you put a little bit of CSS in it, you can take that and turn it into something that looks like that. All right? So first it looks like this, then you add CSS to it, and it looks like this. Now I mentioned that the first 6 chapters that there's a lot of review. This chapter is what the book's about. Chapter 2 is all about debugging. Chapter 3 is on HTML5. Chapter 4 is on CSS3. Chapter 5 is on JavaScript, non-object. And Chapter 6 is on JavaScript objects. So like I said, the faster we can get through that, then we can start doing some of the cool stuff, so to speak. Again, if you don't know the difference between HTTP and HTTPS, it's right there, all right, or it's in there. The big difference is HTTPS is inherently more secure, all right? People think, well, it's HTTPS, nobody can ever look at it. That isn't true. It's harder for people to look at it. And the thing is that they've done studies, and most hackers, if you put up, that's why you put up a firewall, so you make it harder for them to get in. But if you can put up basically the equivalent of a code firewall, they'll go someplace else, because there's a lot of places where they can get in. All right. Now, they talk about some of the HTTP headers. We're not going to worry about most of this stuff for what we're doing in here. All right. We cover a lot of this next semester, too. All right. I'm not sure if you understand the difference between a get and a post. And again, you may say, well, yeah, I do, and other people might say, no, I don't. But if you look right here, there's an example of a get. And the reason I say that is what we have here is the URL, but then after the question mark, that's the query string. And what that is it's a set of key and value pairs. All right? But the idea is when you use a get, you can see the stuff, and you see it right up in the address bar. All right? If you're looking through Blackhawk's, if you start to go through their website, and good luck, but if you start to go through their website and you click a few buttons and you go to a few pages, you're going to see everything as far as where you were going up here. All right? But that doesn't work for passwords and for credit cards and other kinds of information. I mean, you could do it, but you wouldn't want to. So that's typically why you use post. All right? Now there are other things. When you've got a get, you can bookmark it. When you've got a post, you can't bookmark it. Get usually allows you to have longer types of things in there than post does. Or it may even be vice versa, but that isn't even the point. All right, there are differences. One of the main differences between them, and again, I'm giving you something that you might not have even went through today in your database class. But one of the things I'm sure Denny will go over with you is if I do this, if I say select star from employees. If I say that, that's going to show me all the information in the employees table, but I can't change it. Get the idea? So I can look at it, but I can't change it. Well, when you are working in databases, anytime you use the word select, you can look at the data in any way you want to, but you can't change it. That's what a get is. On the other hand, the other things that you learned in there is how to do inserts, how to do deletes, and how to do updates. Well, in order to do that, you need to have the data and you need to be able to change it. That pretty much would equate to a post. That's how I look at the difference between them. And next semester, when you start doing work in PHP, all right, what you're going to notice is when you're doing gets, it's when you want to show something, and you're going to be doing posts when you want to change something, or at least have the ability to change something. All right. Next, they get into web servers and client-side scripting, and they mention they're basically, there's two ways that you can set up different kinds of scripting. You can do it on the client, you can do it on the server, all right? And as they mentioned, this looks very similar to what I told you before. There wasn't the dynamicity in there. The people just threw stuff out there. That might still work today if you want to set up a website and you took a vacation and you want to put your pictures out there and you want to leave them out there forever and not change them. That might work just fine. But I've got a friend, in fact, he used to be a dean here, and since he's retired, he's probably gone to about 30 different countries. He just came back from Morocco. And he's got a site out there, but what he does is he always changes it to show the pictures of where he's been last. All right, so something like that wouldn't work. So as it says, client-side scripting is the process of sending JavaScript code along with a web page. And it's really important that what I'm about to say, that you understand this. All right, and what this is probably everybody in here, or most everybody in here, at some time or other, you've been online where you filled out some kind of a form online, all right? And maybe they've got 10 fields in it, okay? And maybe you left one blank that wasn't supposed to be left blank, all right? And you click the submit button and you immediately get a message up there. It might even go and take your cursor and put it in the field where you forgot something. Well, ideally what's happened there is what they're doing is they're basically going in and they're allowing you to validate on the client side. And you want to validate on the client side because why would you want to send that out to a server someplace so the server could find out you left something off so it could send it back to you? It's a waste of time for the server. It's a waste of resources for the server. All right? And there are different ways that you can validate a form, for example. 4 ways. One, you can do nothing, which is the dumb way, but some people do that. You can validate a lot of your form, almost all of it, with HTML5. All right? The problem is, well, what if the person doesn't have HTML5? All right? So, or what if the site is, basically is an older site or whatever, okay? You can also do it with JavaScript, and you can do it with jQuery. That's most of the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing in here. All right, you're going to start out in your first assignment, you're going to make a very vanilla-ish looking type of website. It won't be a lot of glitz or a lot of other stuff in it, but as we go on and you learn more and more, you'll be adding more and more stuff to it. All right, so they show this. I don't know if looking at those pictures is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not real sure. All right, then they talk about server-side scripting, and they say there's 2 major types of server-side scripting. You can use server-side templates and you can use Ajax. What's the difference? Well, next semester you're going to be using those server-side templates. You'll create PHP files, you'll create ASP.NET files, etc. There's other ones that you can use also. I used to teach a class in JSP, Java Server Pages, but students in the same semester were doing ASPX, JSP, and PHP, and they were going nuts. All right, so I took that out of the program and replaced it with something else. All right, but there are a lot of ways that you can do that. All of those involve basically sending something over to the server, and they can be very time-consuming for a lot of reasons. On the other hand, and some of you have seen this already, if I go out to Family Video's site, and I click on New Release Rentals, and I take my mouse and I put it over there, you see that? That's basically an Ajax request that's taking place. What it's doing is it's redrawing just enough of the screen that it has to redraw, and when I leave, it basically gets rid of it. So that's another way. It did that, and it didn't have to redraw the entire page. And Ajax, which is one of the things that makes that happen, is not a new phenomenon. It's over 20 years old. All right, people typically don't realize that. And, I got to give kudos because I never do. It actually was, even though they didn't realize it, in many ways was invented by Microsoft. All right, they didn't realize they invented it. Other people had to kind of tell them. All right, but that's pretty much what happened. And they give you an example in here, and what they do is they take this file and they end up creating the same thing that you saw earlier without the CSS in it. But they do it basically using something that's called JSON, which you'll learn about this semester too. All right. The thing about AJAX is an acronym. It stands for Asynchronous, JavaScript, and XML. Okay. The problem is, over the years, XML is not nearly as popular as it used to be. It's kind of a verbose, wordy type of language. Some people love it, some people hate it. So in many ways, XML has been replaced with JSON. JSON or it's JavaScript object notation. You want to learn more, go out. It's either JSON.com or JSON.org. I don't remember which one. But if you want to start getting an introduction to that, you can go. Or again, you can go out to, as you mentioned, to W3 Schools, because they've got a lot of stuff on this. All right. Then what they do next is they have you set up this website environment. Now, all I will tell you is, if you want to do this, this is around page 21, I believe, in the book, you can go into the virtual desktop and do what they talk about. You can set up Node.js. This stuff will work. I tried it just to see if it would. It will work, but it's all command line. And if you're cool with using the command line, then go ahead and do it. It's not a problem. When I grade your stuff, it won't matter how you've created it as long as I'm able to read it. All right? So you can go through and take a look at that stuff if you've got an interest in doing that. Okay? They also go through a fairly long explanation here of how you can configure Eclipse as a web development IDE. The advantage of doing that is first of all, if you're already in the Java class, well, then you're going to get a double dose of Eclipse. All right, so you become very proficient at it. Some people love this. All right, there are a lot of editors that are out there. Okay, and a lot of them will color code and do a lot of other things. In fact, on here, I'm trying to remember, because I put the stuff, I had them put the stuff on here. Trying to remember what's all on here, and I don't offhand. But there are a few editors on here already. Most of the time, I just use Notepad++. Why? Probably because I'm lazy, all right, more than anything else. But if you want to go through this, they show you. This is in the book. It starts on the bottom of page 22, and it's 22, 23, 24, 25, and the top of page 26. They show you how you can configure Eclipse. And even though John hasn't probably gone through it, I mean, between the two of us, I would think if you have problems, we could probably figure out what the problem is. All right? Which is my way of nicely saying John could probably figure out what the problem is. All right. Then on page 26, they talk about creating an Express web server using Node.js. And that's on 26, 27, and 28. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But I'm just going to use XAMPP for the examples that we go through in here. All right, that's the plan that I have. All right. Then, starting on a couple pages down, we'll take a break in just a couple minutes. They do talk about in here, where is it? Just try it yourself, creating a dynamic web page using jQuery and JavaScript. This is the bottom of page 28, pages 29, 30, 31, and 32. What they do, just so you know, is they create a simple div tag. Okay? And they take the div tag and they use CSS to make it look like a button. And the idea is it says, like, click me on it. But you can't ever click it, because every time you get your mouse and you mouse over it, it automatically uses random number generation to give you a new place on the screen, a new random X coordinate and a new random Y coordinate. All right? So I'll tell you what, let's take a break right now. It's 3:48. Let's come back. Let's make it 4 o'clock. We'll finish that up, and then we'll look at what's in Chapter 2.